when the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him. Then he will sit on the throne of his glory. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he will put the sheep at his right hand, and the goats at the left. Then the king will say to those at his right hand, "Come, you that are blessed by my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. For I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you welcomed me. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry and gave you food, or thirsty and gave you something to drink? And when was it that we saw you in a stranger and welcomed you, or naked and gave you clothing? And when was it that we saw you sick or in prison and visited you?" And the king will answer them, "Truly I tell you, just as you did to one of the least of these, who are members of my family, you did it to me." Then he will say to those at his left hand, "You that accursed me, depart from me into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry, and you gave me nothing. For I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you did not welcome me. Naked, and you did not give me clothing. Sick and in prison, you did not visit me." When they also will answer, "Lord, when was it that we saw you hungry, or thirsty, or a stranger, or naked, or sick, or in prison, and did not take care of you?" Then he will answer them, "Truly I tell you, just as you did not do it to one of the least of these, you did not do it to me." And these will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life.
Thank you for reading that for us. As you read that and processed it and think about it in light of what we're celebrating or remembering today as Refugee Sunday, what stands out to you from Jesus' words here?
That's a really good question. I think what stands out the most to me has to do with when he emphasizes the least, right? Because to some degree we all do these kind of things to those we love, our friends, family. We clothe them, we feed them, we take care of them when they're hungry or in need. But I think he's trying to emphasize the least. There are those who are on the margins that we do not see readily, in our daily commute, in our daily work. We don't think of them just, as we would of our friends, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's the emphasis of this passage. And when I also want to, something, even though it's not said in there, but what makes me think is that we're so busy in life, right? We're work, family, worries. So it's very easy to forget about, again, those you don't see every day, out of sight, out of mind kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of our mission to be intentional and to be very thoughtful with how we spend our time, right? Mm-hmm. To make sure, again, we try to avoid what's, what brings discomfort, unease, right?
Yeah.
Whereas those who are on the margins, are where it's uneasy, where it's ugly. Right? Mm-hmm. We want to see people who are starving and going through tough times. So we try to look where it's pretty and pretend that's all there is, right? But I think the deeper message I get from that passage is that we need to be attentive, of our surroundings. We need to see where people are falling through the cracks, as they say. So that's what I got from that verse.
Yeah.
In passage.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That really resonates with me too. You know, we're all busy and have so much going on, and it's easy to get those like blinders on and not be able to see out of our own, outside of our own lives. And I liked what you said about the discomfort too. That connects with me a lot. I feel like I'm at my capacity most of the time with discomfort just in what's happening around me. But I hear in your voice, Jesus reminding us that the discomfort of our neighbors is also our own discomfort, even if they're neighbors that are far away.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true.
Is there anything else from this passage that strikes you?
You know, the classic saying in the Bible, love thy neighbor, right? We all, agree with that. We all, believe that it makes sense. Like, I don't think I would want to be, mistreated, right?
Yeah.
But I think most of the time it's not that we mistreat people, but it's that we just stand by. We don't do enough to, to defend them, from those, things that could happen. It could be hunger. I didn't cause it, but it doesn't mean it's not my responsibility as a Christian to engage, to be involved, to do something about it. So I think again that was one of those defenses. Hey, I'm busy. I didn't cause the problem. I didn't do it. I didn't do that. So we feel good about ourselves for not causing the problem, but we forget that it's not just that. It's also our duty to bring harmony, correct what's wrong wherever we can. But in this day and age, it can be kind of hard to think you have an impact when you see everything is changing. You see big things happening, wars, whatever, coronavirus. Like, you feel so small. Like, what can I do? It's only me and my family. We can't do anything. I'll just stick to what I know. I'll serve what I can. The rest, hey, it's not my problem. The government can handle it. Other countries can do that. But then, the more you believe in that, the smaller you get. The less you do, the less you do. And when you multiply that, over a city or state or country, it's not good. So
in just the same way that Jesus is interested in the least of these in terms of their needs, he's also interested in the least of these in terms of whatever tiny gifts we have to offer that Jesus calls us and knits us together in community to do those things and to be amplified, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very good way to say it. Yeah, it's a small, again, one thing. Again, as I say, a mile begins with one step, right? Or a journey begins one step. That's true, right? But when you think about how is one step going to, run this mile, you feel it's so, disabled. Like, I can't do this. I can't do it, right? So I think it's just the same idea, but when more issues, bigger issues, but it's the same principle.
Yeah. So you are the new controller. Is that your title with the Reformed Church in America for Global Missions?
So my title is Operations Manager for Global Mission.
Thank you. For Global Missions of the Reformed Church in America, which is our denomination.
Yes, indeed.
So you have the privilege of being exposed to a lot of places around the world where people are visiting the sick and caring for prisoners and all the kinds of things that Jesus mentions.
Right.
So could you tell us about one or two places that are exciting to you about where that is happening through Global Missions?
Oh man, that's a very good question, because right now it's everywhere. With the quarantine now, all of the countries we work in, with different projects, we've kind of shifted our focus from development to relief, right? Because again, most people forget that in many countries, many people just they eat what they earn that day, right? So there's no safety net, there's no unemployment benefits, there is no savings, that actually can carry them over a time like this when they're in quarantine. So when they have no means to earn incomes, they have no means to eat, literally to eat, right? So right now what we're doing is we talk to our partners abroad and try to see what ways can we help them to meet those needs. You know, when the people are shut in, what can we do? It could be food drives, could be anything. You know, so anything that we can do. So again, literally, this is every country working. It's the same situation. You know, from Italy even, you know, from Italy, Portugal, to Oman, Bahrain, you know, Mozambique, it's the same thing. You know, there are people who are always going to be falling through the cracks when something like this happens. So this tragedy kind of exposes, you know, how, you know, our infrastructure, right, doesn't benefit. There's a few that, you know, tend to fall, you know, by the wayside. So we're doing our best to kind of be that gap, you know, what society can provide for them and what their needs are. And yeah, again, since March we've been trying to offer grants, even for example, I can think of in Cambodia, we have a partner there with a school, and as kids are quarantined, they can go to school, right?
Right.
And school is still going on. Not everyone has internet at home, has access to internet. So what we did was try to buy and provide internet for their houses so they can continue to go to school. That's something that they didn't have and they couldn't afford. So again, for us, like, internet, it's everywhere, right? It's so small, we don't even think about it. It's almost like it's a right? Whereas, you know, in many countries or many places, you know, all over the world, it's not as available. So again, it's those little things. It's not a big thing, but it's necessary. When someone needs that, that's all they care about. So yeah, literally right now, it's every country we're in, we're focusing on relief right now because that's what's needed right now. Yeah.
I found out that I'm coming to a place called Lancaster, and the first thing that comes up when you Google Lancaster, Pennsylvania, is the Amish folks and the horses and the buggies. So I was like, okay, I guess we're going back in time. My name is Mustafa Noor.
Idafi Okboro.
Jesse Calzado Esponda.
George Tar.
Lorena Boy.
Ahmed Badr. So I was born in Iraq, in Baghdad, in 1998.
I was born and raised in Somalia, and I lived there up until I was 11 years old.
I was born at almost the onset of a civil war in Liberia.
I'm originally from Cuba. When I was 7 years old, I was placed in a raft that came to America.
Originally, I'm from Nigeria. I left my home country because I am an openly gay man. My life was in danger because of my sexual orientation and the work I do as an activist.
In 2006, our home was attacked. A week later, we moved to Syria. We went from Damascus to Budapest to New York City. We went to Chicago, and then Chicago to Sioux Falls. The OUX sneaks up on you. I thought it was Sioux Falls, but Sioux Falls it is. Refugee is someone who has to leave home, who is forced to leave home. Oftentimes, you know, all of a sudden.
Back home, there's something wrong.
My first day in America was Halloween day. I was just so confused why everybody's wearing all these costumes. And I just remember thinking, I guess we have to fit in. I don't think we brought the right clothes for this area, but...
I was confused by the foods. Like, I don't understand the concept of ranch and blue cheese. Obviously now I'm obsessed with blue cheese.
When I opened the house and I saw all these children and, you know, they say, hey, trick or treat. And I assumed that they like having a welcoming basket for the new people. So I took the bag. So like
A lot of people do not know the difference between an economic migrant and a refugee. The reason why people flee is because their lives are in danger.
The biggest misconception is that we want to be refugees, when that's just not so. Like, no one wants to leave home.
Being a refugee is not a choice. It's something that happens to you and you don't have any control of it.
The most common misconception about refugees is that they are different from you. There are aspects of the refugee experience that are relatable to anyone.
Coffee for me is like my boyfriend.
I'm all about the Korean barbecue right now.
I can eat any type of spicy food.
We don't have strawberries in my country, so I indulged in the strawberries.
I absolutely love to shop. For my almost 2-year-old, I love dressing her up.
I love music, mostly British rap.
I like karaoke. My favorite karaoke song is I Did It My Way by Frank Sinatra.
I love dancing, salsa dancing, booty shaking dancing.
A refugee can look like anyone.
A refugee person looks like me, this little cute guy.
Just look at yourselves in the mirror, look at your best friends, go through your Facebook. That's exactly what we look like.
There is no image of a refugee. That's not possible. Think of a neighbor, someone, your kid goes to school with, a coworker.
We're literally people. We're people just like you.
When you hear the word refugee, think about that word. Think about what that word represents. Think about the distance that is assumed and work to make that distance less.
What resonated with you about being a refugee, part of a refugee family, as you watched that video?
Being a refugee is a very strange thing. It's like something that you are you are assigned to it. It's not. I don't know. It's not something. It's almost like something you feel ashamed of being, because one day you're not, the next day you are a refugee. What happened? What did I didn't sign up for this, right?
Yeah.
But because the word refugee has a lot of it has a lot of baggage around it. It kind of sums up everything you've been through into one word. Refugee. Sure, I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it's a small word, but it means a lot to people. When you fled your country unwillingly, again, no one chooses to leave their country, as the girl said in the video. No one decides, you know what, I'm gonna go live my country, my family. All I know is just to go out there and struggle and try to see what's out there. It's not an adventure, You're not trying to be Indiana Jones out there.
Yeah.
So you're kind of thrust out there and hope for the best. And most people don't survive. Most people don't become refugees. They don't make it.
Yeah.
They die, kidnapped.
Yeah.
It's a classic what you hear about. The kid soldiers. How does that happen, right? They're fleeing. They get kidnapped. They end up wherever, right?
Yeah.
So
that's what they have to do to live.
exactly. So it's.
So
when I saw that video,
even the term
Yeah.
refugee, as much pain and horrible trauma that comes with that, there's
Right.
also privilege of being one of the people who makes it
Oh yes,
to being
exactly.
a refugee.
That's true. Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Yeah.
That's true. Even as bad as it is being a refugee, which was it's an example. It's evidence of what you've been through.
Yeah.
There are those who don't even get to be refugees.
Yeah.
That's
That's
true.
There's grief with that too.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
knowing many of the people from your
Yeah.
country who,
Exactly. Yeah.
who
Yeah.
don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, who weren't able to make it out. So what do you want us to know about what it's like to be a refugee in America today?
One of the things I've seen since I've been here, as I see more refugees in newer refugees come to this country or to this state, is obviously the culture shock, right? It is there, right? Again, the sense of lost, wow, this is new to me. I don't know what this is, But I think, as the video said, we're no different than anybody else. We didn't choose to be refugees, but we're happy, we're thankful to be in a safe place.
Yeah.
Right? Thankful to be in a safe place, and we will do what we can to get back to the country, and again, we'll do all we can to be grateful. But it is challenging to be a refugee. Besides, again, the culture shock, it's just, again, that's another word. It's small, but it has a lot of components into it. It could be the social. Socially, it's tough on you. Trying to understand the language for those who don't know the language, and then also getting acquainted with the systems. Schools, laws, and all that. There's a bunch of things that you don't think about when you're in your own country. It's where you were born. Now that you're in another country, you have to think about everything you do. because you don't know if it's right or wrong, right?
If it's legal or
If
illegal.
It's legal or illegal. If it's acceptable, even if it's legal.
Yeah.
Is that a normal thing to do? Is it with the norms with our culture? You know. So there are things you do that are offensive. Like, what? I didn't know that was a
Yeah.
bad thing to do.
Yeah.
Or things that seem to be offensive to you. For example, one of the common things that are true abroad but not true here is, you know, looking someone in the eyes. For example, you and I, because I'm older, because you're older than me. It's not customary for me to look you in the eye when I'm talking to you. I should look down or look somewhere else.
Okay.
If I do that here, it's seen as rude. Like, why are you not looking at me?
Yeah.
You're not paying attention to me,
Yeah.
right? So those things, but so those things that can rub off on you, can make you feel upset. Like, this is messed up. Why am I here? Why am I not in my country? So that kind of adds up to the pressure of being like, first of all, I didn't choose to be a refugee. Now I'm here, and I feel like I'm always, angry or frustrated or misunderstood by people. So all those little things, those little rubs here and there, that can make it just hard to adjust to society. That again, you didn't choose to be in to begin with.
That sounds really exhausting.
It is exhausting, and initially, and it gets better, but it takes a long time. It's not like you're gonna just erase all you know to this new. So you kind of have to balance what you know to learn new things.
So I've heard refugees referred to as new Americans, as kind of I don't know if it's a way to kind of remove some of the stigma of being a refugee. How does that strike you? Does that feel like it fits? Do you feel like you're an American? Do you feel like you're a new American? You've been here a long time. Is that what do you think about that term?
Yeah, I think I've heard it once or twice, New American. Well, technically, if you think about it, you're a refugee if you're in a camp. Like, you're a refugee, so you're John and you're a refugee, you face your family. Once you're out of the camp and resettled into a place of refuge, you're no longer a refugee per se. So if, for us, for example, I came to the U.S. 10 years ago as a refugee. So the moment I get placed into another place that I'm no longer running or in a refuge mode, for example. So I don't know. I agree with the term with New American. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. But I see where they're coming from.
Yeah.
You're right, because you're no longer a refugee if you're no longer fleeing from anything.
Yeah.
I guess you're not home, but technically you're no longer a refugee.
So you guys had already been a part of this congregation for a few years before we came here.
Yes. Yeah.
And I assumed that it had been a lot longer than that you guys have been here, but it's only been 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years, yeah.
10
actually,
years.
Yeah.
Wow. So that would have made you 17.
16.
16.
Because I turned 17 in April.
When you had to leave your country.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a tender time in any young man's life.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. You have come an incredibly long way geographically.
Oh, yes.
And in terms of setting down roots and finding your place in the world and becoming a meaningful, really important part of RCA Global Missions. As you think about all of that, what is a word or two or a feeling that comes to mind for you?
I think I'll always say grateful, because despite all the troubles I went through, my family went through, it's you also have to remember those throughout the way that give you a hand, help you a hand, so give you hope, right? Because you can't make it alone, in this world, As we saw in the passage, it's when people can see you, can see what you're going through, and give you advice, give you comfort, warmth, anything to just kind of encourage you to keep moving.
Yeah.
To keep moving. So I think I'm always grateful for those opportunities, right? Because I never imagined myself going to a college in the U.S. Sure, I was wanting to go to school, until whenever I went as a kid. But I never imagined where my path was going. You know, I didn't know I was a child. Even if I wasn't a child, I can't predict the future.
Yeah.
But so even when we got here, my path could have went different ways. There's so many ways. Most ways are bad. Only a few ways are good, right? So having people to kind of guide you, your family, friends, a church, a community, literally, to kind of guide you through the minefield of life. You know, don't do that. Don't do that. Do this. Do this. You know, every kid is rebellious, right? So being able to have people who are patient enough to deal with you as you're growing up, you know, as you're finding yourself, you know, you're trying to define who you are in your family, in society, in the world. So that's what I'm always going to be grateful for, that, you know, the people around you who help you, who guide you, who help you grow, you know. So literally, so I think if it was one word, it would be grateful.
Grateful.
Literally.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
You used the word refuge a few minutes ago, and that connected with me as we're sitting here in the sanctuary, the holy place, which is a place of refuge, should be a place of refuge. And that speaks to me about the calling that the church has to sort of bridge the distance. That was the phrase that stood out to me from the video where the refugees were speaking, to follow the example of Christ and to bridge the distance that we perceive. That's not really that big of a distance between us and human brothers and sisters. And I'm really grateful that we get to be in relationship with you and share the work and ministry in the Reformed Church in America.
Likewise.
With you, and thank you for being willing to share your story.
Thank you for giving me the time.
Yeah.